Welcome to Breakthrough Success. I'm your host, Mark Gabberty, the content marketing expert, bringing you 5 new episodes every week where I and top-level guests teach you how to take your business to the next level and achieve your breakthrough. Hello, Breakthrough Success listeners. I just wanted you all to know before the episode actually starts, I've been working a little bit behind the scenes to give you something really special. So a while ago, I wrote my book, Content Marketing Secrets, which helps people create, promote, and optimize their content for growth and revenue. And I just put the finishing touches together to offer that for free to anyone who is interested. So if you want your free copy of Content Marketing Secrets, all you have to do is head over to markgabberty.com/book. Now, let's jump right into the episode. One of the business models that is making a big splash is the service-based business model. And while it's really exciting to think about all the possibilities, there are people who they just want to see some results. They just want to see that their service-based business is able to attract clients, able to keep them, able to achieve a big profit. So we're going to focus on the proven path to success for any service-based business. And who better to talk about that than today's guest who actually grew a service-based business from $0 to $500,000 in annual revenue. And he did all that in just 4 years. He eventually sold that business for 3 times the net profit. And having done that and achieved the freedom he was looking for, he then decided to set out on a mission to help others achieve the same level of freedom that he was able to achieve. And he does this as a consultant, coach, investor, and advocate for small business owners. Today's guest for episode 225 of the Breakthrough Success Podcast is none other than Paul Maskill. Paul, it is such a pleasure to have you on the show.
Mark, thank you for that intro. That's probably the biggest and best one I've ever had on a podcast.
Paul, thank you for being on the show. And I mean, you have had a bunch of really good accomplishments. I mean, the amount of growth you're able to achieve for your service-based business, which you eventually decided to sell that one, is really incredible, which is why we need to be talking about that on the show right now. So before we do that, though, I'd like to get some background. So I'm wondering if you could share with us why you decided to focus on service-based businesses, because there's a lot of different models to choose from.
Yeah, so I really like service-based businesses, one, because it deals with a lot of people. I tried my hand at e-commerce, and I was making sales and selling on Amazon and selling on Shopify, but there wasn't that excitement factor that you can actually connect with customers on a day-to-day basis, like in person. And what I realized in the service-based world is there's a ton of people who provide really good services, but they're not that great at actually running the business. They usually started the business because either they're good at it or out of necessity, or they had a passion for it. So they started doing it, whatever the service is. Right now, I'm involved in a dog walking company and a landscaping company. Both of those companies were originally started by people who loved walking dogs and people who loved landscaping. So they said, what better way to start my own business than do what I love? And my father actually did the same thing. He's been doing hardwood floors for 40 some years now. And he's great at it. He loves it. But from a business side, there's so many people in the service-based world that they just need that little extra help on the back end to really maximize their potential, really achieve that freedom. Because what most people find is, wow, I'm really good at this, and I'm picking up momentum and picking up more customers. But then you run into the point where I can't grow anymore because I physically can't work anymore. So that's kind of where I come in and help them with systems and processes so they can continue to scale their business. And it's kind of the whole Michael Gerber E-myth, go from working in your business to working on your business to really achieve the income and freedom that you sought when you started your business in the first place. So that's it. In short, that's why I really like service-based businesses. I love the local community. I love getting involved. I love impacting people and having that kind of wow factor from customers in the flesh. So that's really, what I do. And most of them aren't going to be, outsourced anytime soon until robots, I guess, take over the world.
Paul, thank you for sharing with us how you got started. I really like that idea of setting up systems, because we need to have systems to work more efficiently, more effectively, and it's also easier when we have systems to hand off the work to others. So I'm wondering if you could share with us some of your just like tactics and things like that for creating better systems, but also like how can we like get better at handing the work off to others because like even if we have the system, some people really don't want to hand off any of their work because they feel like only they can do it. So how do we create the systems and also uh, get comfortable with handing off the work to others?
Yeah, that's a great question, Mark. So I think from a macro level, you really want to look at why did you start this business in the first place? And when you get to where you want to go, whatever that is, get back to that reason of why you started your business. I want to start my business because I want to take 4 weeks vacation and I don't want to work Fridays and whatever the reason is. And then what do you need in place in order to make that happen? What does your organization chart look like? What does your business look like? How many customers are you serving? So kind of what is that business when you get to wherever you're going? What does that look like? And then start working backwards to figure out what do you need to do today to make that happen, however long it takes you to get there. So from a macro level, that's really what it is, kind of big picture thinking of starting with the end in mind and then, starting to work backwards. And then from a micro level and being able to really give up control, first, it's kind of a mindset shift, realizing that you aren't the only one that can do that. And this world was just fine before you figured out how to do whatever you're doing. And really, there's hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people, depending what type of business you're in, that are doing the exact same thing as you. So realizing that you're not special and realizing that somebody else could do what you're doing if you provided them the roadmap and game plan for success, which is where a lot of business owners kind of fall off the wagon, where you delegate a task and say, hey, go do this. This is your job. But if you didn't take the time to put in the systems and processes and have the right infrastructure and have the right standard operating procedures, then that person's probably not going to do it the way you did it because you didn't provide them the tools they needed to succeed. And that's where a lot of people get in kind of the blame game of, I'm better off doing it myself. That person didn't know what they're doing. They're an idiot. I'm getting rid of them. I'm better off just doing it all myself because I know I'm going to do it right. And there really is no doing it right. They just happen to be doing it their way, and you're doing it your way. So, the saying, there's 1,000 ways to skin a cat, holds true with this as well, until you give them the recipe for success. And from a really micro level of getting into the weeds and how you do it, first, you really need to start doing everything in a systematic way. Start shifting your mindset of how can I do this in a way that somebody else could do it as well? So first kind of doing it in a systematic way. So kind of perfecting that process, because we all have processes every day. It's just we might not have documented them, which is the second step of eventually delegating. So documenting how these things are done. Whatever the task is, whether it takes 10 minutes or 10 hours, documenting how it's done, whether that's typing up step-by-step standard operating procedures. I love using technology, so I like using screen recording software if it's a computer task that I'm delegating. So the next time I need to run this process, whatever it is, hit record on your screen recording software, record it. You can do a voiceover over it. And then right there, you have the exact recipe for everybody else to do it the way you did it, because they can hit play, they can pause, they can rewind, they can learn at their own pace, and then they can ask you questions if they need help. But it's a lot better than kind of the old days before technology of sitting next to somebody and showing them stuff for 8 to 10 hours a day and then hoping they retained it all, because they're not going to. And then they're going to call you the next day. Hey, man, I know we went over this, but I totally forgot how to do it. Do you have some time for questions? Whereas leverage technology to record these videos and then delegate it. And then you're available to provide support, answer questions, and all that good stuff. And as far as getting over that final mental block of delegating it, the first one's always the toughest, but it's going to get easier and easier once you see success. And then realizing the worst case scenario is never as bad as you think it's going to be. So if you delegate something and that person does it totally not your way, then figure out why that happened, put a system in place to make sure it doesn't happen again, and then move on. Your customers aren't going to care. You can always go delete stuff. You can always own your mistakes and tell your customers, hey, I'm sorry, we're implementing a new process and it didn't go as planned. And then you've just built up even more credibility with your customers because it shows that you care and you're reaching out to them, apologizing, and owning your problem. So it's really first a mindset shift and then actually, physically doing it. And if you aren't doing a computer task, kind of last tip, just get out your phone, whether you have an Android or iPhone. That camera is more powerful than almost any other camera in the history of man. So just hit record. This is how you do this task. And then it doesn't have to be pretty. It just has to be functional. So hopefully that helps listeners out there, try to start getting that ball rolling, because once it starts rolling, momentum is a very powerful thing in life, in business. And once you start seeing success, your employees or your contractors, whoever it is, starts to get more confident. They feel a part of something bigger. And then you can really go, get to where you really want to go.
Paul, a lot of amazing insights in that answer. And just to break that down a little bit, if you haven't delegated yet, just hire that first person. I recommend onlinejobs.ph. There are a lot of other places you can go to find people, but just hire someone, even if it's something really small, 5 hours a week or less, just to get into it, just to get the whole experience. And I mean, training is another thing that Paul touched on. You can do it through video. Video is popular. I also use Google Docs to train the people on my team, but there's so many different ways to do it. You got to be training the people on your team to implement the systems that you create for them, and that's how you get the best results. And this is for like service-based businesses and for like any business with any kind of model. Delegation is just so important. But for people who have a different business model, like they primarily sell the one-off product, like a training course or books or something like that. How can these people who primarily sell those kinds of products and just products in general transition to the service-based business?
Yeah, so I mean, I guess it really depends on what their goals are. But if you're selling, say, digital products and you're just selling online courses, kind of figure out what service would you want to provide, and then what service could you actually delegate at some point. You don't have to delegate it right away, but whether it's running more online stuff where you're actually providing a service, whether it's a done-for-you service. So, say you're selling an ebook or digital product on how to create an online course. Okay, here's the step-by-step. Or the next level is you don't even have to go through that. It's just a done-for-you service. So this is more of an online service that we're kind of diving in. But then people could come to you, pay you a premium. You could set everything up for them. You document how you've set that up. And then, like you mentioned, go to, find somebody online. If you've created the right systems, you've created the right documentation, you've created the right training, eventually then you start building a team of people that are creating these, in this example, these courses for people that don't want to take the time to set all the technology up and set up the member site and, embed this and host that. They just want it done for you. So no matter what you're selling, online digital product, online course, ebook, whatever it is, you could always have that upsell of a done for you premium service that maybe you do the first 6 months to kind of figure it out, what works, what doesn't work. But then you start delegating, and maybe you just start delegating one task at a time. Hey, I need all these videos hosted over here, and then I need them pulling through over here. And then that person figures that out, and maybe they're good at more stuff. Maybe they start putting all the, online workbooks online. And then maybe they start typing up this, or maybe you're transcribing that. Whatever it is, start with the end in mind. What does this business look like? What does this service look like? And then work your way backwards. First, you probably should figure it out, because you don't want to delegate something that you know nothing about, because then there's no way to really have the quality control. And you want to be able to talk knowledgeably to the person you're delegating to and your customer. But then eventually you start documenting how this is done. There's a lot of things that no matter who your customer is, you're going to do the same thing probably 80% of the time. And then the 20% might be client-specific stuff. So I would say just kind of look at how you could upsell your customers and have that premium product where they're really buying your expertise. But more importantly, they're buying time, which is everyone's most valuable asset.
And I really like that idea of having the service as an upsell. I'm a big book reader, and I've been reading more books where at the end of the book is a service that is offered as an upsell based on what was in the book. So it's like, if you read all this and you're like, wow, this is really impressive, I need to be doing this for my business, but I don't have time, I don't fully know what to do, we handle that for you. So that is something that you can incorporate at the end of a book, at the end of a training course, and whether it's the last video, last few pages, or just a follow-up sequence as well. There are a lot of different ways to make that incorporation when you have products leading them to the service-based business. And earlier I mentioned how you built a service-based business that had $500,000 in annual revenue. You do see a lot of service-based businesses, like some of them like really do hit those like incredible revenue levels, like six figures a year, some even like six figures a month. So I wonder if you could share with us what that path looks like for going from zero to 500,000 annual revenue, and just like what that whole path consists of to building a successful service-based business.
Yeah, so I think first you probably, depending if you're doing a local in-person service or you're doing an online service, whatever it is, first you kind of have to prove the concept, right? So this works. And then you start getting some more customers and more customers. And then you're going to get to a point of, I mean, for me, it happened maybe around, say, $200,000. I got to the point where I saw the momentum. I saw the demand in the market. I saw I could keep growing this thing really as far as I wanted to, but I didn't have any more hours in my day. So that's when I really kind of got into the mindset of how can I keep scaling this? How can I keep customers the exact same experience they've always had? Because a lot of times business owners think, well, once I delegate, the customers aren't going to be dealing with me, and they all want to deal with me, and they all love talking to me, and they're not going to get the best service if they're not doing it with me. And I'm going to keep holding on and holding on and holding on. So kind of switching that mindset of, if I create these right systems and processes, my customers are going to get the exact same experience, because you don't want to grow super fast. You don't have the systems in place, and then your customer experience goes down. With the power of online reviews and Facebook and Yelp and Google and word of mouth and everything else, customer experience is number one. So you always want to put the customers first and have the infrastructure, have the people to make sure you maintain that level of, customer experience. Because at the end of the day, no matter what you're selling, like we said before, there's millions of other people selling it. So what you're selling is a commodity. How you actually deliver that service that's kind of your special sauce. So as you continue to go, then it's, for me, it was, like I said, right around the $200,000 mark. I want to continue growing this, but I don't really have any more hours in the day because I'm doing everything. So kind of starting to document everything I do, and then starting to put those videos and training things in place. And then, like you mentioned, just delegating. Hey, first I just want to free up an hour a day, and then I want to free up 2, and then 4, and then 8. And then eventually you get to the point where you can just continue to grow your business because you have all the people in place. The people are delivering just as if you would deliver because they're following your game plan. And then really, the expectations, and there really is no limit on as far as you want to go until you reach that point of there are no more customers in the market. If you ever reach that point, then it's really, how can I do more for my current customers? So like we said before, do you have any additional done for you services? Can you add complementary services? So as far as the journey, unless someone's getting funding and getting a lot of money, you're probably going to be bootstrapping it and doing everything yourself, especially in the service-based world. So then how do you get out of providing the service to eventually have people providing the service? That's really where the systems and processes come in, and taking the time to do it right so that you then have the time to support your employees, because your employees are the most important people, since they're delivering to your second most important people, which is your customers. Because without a good employee, the customers probably aren't going to get an experience. They're not going to come back. They're probably going to tell the world that you suck. And then you're going to be wondering why things stopped growing. So hopefully that helps answer a little bit. I don't know if you want to dive in any other aspects of growing it, but really it comes down to managing your time and figuring out when you've reached that capacity so you can continue moving forward before it's too late.
And I mean, there's just so much great insights there, with the focus again on being the systems that you create for the long-term growth, while short-term is definitely you doing a lot more of the work on your own. And one of the things that I do want to touch upon is that obviously not all service-based businesses are making the $500,000 in annual revenue, or the six figures, or the seven figures. So I'm wondering if you could share with us, what do you believe holds most service-based businesses back from achieving those levels of profit?
I would probably say mindset. I think a lot of times, no matter where we're at in the world, whether it's online or local, we sometimes get into, we assume what's wrong with our business. So I'm not growing as much. Maybe it must be my pricing. People think I'm too expensive. So then we start competing on price, and it's a race to the bottom. You never want to compete on price. You want to compete on value, perceived value, and what you're actually delivering, because people will pay a premium if they see the value. The people that are racing to the bottom, you don't want those customers anyway. So I see a lot of people just assume it's price, which then, like we said, it's just customer turnover, customer turnover, customer turnover. You want to know that whatever you charge, people are getting a great deal because you're going to deliver on that premium price. So I would say that's one thing that's definitely holding people back. But then number two, I think it really is that mentality and that mindset of getting over the idea that nobody else can do whatever you're doing. If they can do it as 80% as well as you can, you should be delegating it ASAP. So, one easy exercise is just writing down everything that you do and then asking yourself, could somebody else do this if I gave them the right training, right support, right infrastructure? And probably 90% of the things you do, somebody else could do it if you gave them everything they need. There's certain things that business owners always want to do, always have to do, whether it's talking to the accountant or making sure the books are right, or the big level, the high level HR stuff, until you have a whole HR team, maybe some of the confidential stuff with hiring employees, social security number, taxes, all that kind of stuff. But really, almost everything that you do in your business, you can delegate it if you do it properly. So I would say that's probably the other biggest thing that holds people back. And then I would say thirdly, to go into one more, is maybe just a lack of understanding the difference between marketing and sales, especially in the online world. I talk to way too many people that say Facebook ads don't work, Instagram ads don't work. I spent $200 and nobody bought my stuff. I host a local meetup once a month, and somebody just came to the meetup last week and said, well, I don't think this Facebook ad stuff works. I spent $200 and nobody bought my t-shirts. I was like, well, let me ask you this. When's the last time you bought something online? Or when's the last time you bought something through Facebook from somebody that you've never heard of? And the answer 99% of the time is never. So, for all the content creators out there, I told my analogy was it's like riding a bike. If you don't know how to ride a bike, yes, a bike does not work at all. But if you know how to ride a bike and you have a strategy and game plan and all that, it can get you many places. So, especially for the content creators out there, having the patience of putting in the time and building up that value and serving before selling and building that warm audience. So eventually, then when it is time to sell whatever you're selling, having the patience to wait on that. And when it is time to sell, and offer your products, then you have, a big, nice pool of warm people that are ready to buy. I think way too many people in the content world, on the online world, digital marketing world, it's just like, hey, buy my stuff, even though you've never heard of me, versus starting a conversation and providing value and understanding what situation there is and having those conversations so that when it is time, they are lined up ready to buy whatever you have because you've already built that know, like, and trust factor.
And I really like that idea of building the relationship, something that is so important in marketing. And like some people, like I can see like the sense of rush, like, well, I need these results now. I want them now. But if you're willing to play the long game, build the relationships before you ever ask for the sale, that helps with when you do ask for the sale, you're in a better position where the person knows you, they know, like, trust you, as Paul pointed out, and then you are able to get more sales. So a lot of this is based on relationship building. But as we go through our journeys, we're building relationships, we're growing our businesses. Some of us may be in the service space, some of us may want to make that transition, but in any event, challenges are just a big part of the process. And I'm wondering, with that in mind, Paul, if you could share with us one big challenge you faced in your journey and a powerful lesson you learned during that challenge.
Yeah, so I would say my biggest challenge kind of fits into everything that we've been talking about is, I got to the point where I literally just couldn't work anymore. And it was like, I really realized it when I asked myself, what happens if I got hit by a bus? And if I got hit by a bus, I wouldn't have any revenue. So I realized that basically all I had was a job, because a job is you only get paid when you work. So I had a business, but it was really just a job, because if something happened to me, no money would come in. If I didn't show up for work for a week, yes, money would come in short term just based on residual relationships and stuff, but not for very long, because I was the one doing everything. My business needed me to survive. So, that was probably the biggest challenge. And then realizing that I spent all this time preparing for my business and running my business on a day-to-day basis, but I didn't spend any time and actually realize where I'm going. So that was probably the biggest challenge, because I didn't really know what to do next. It was like, what do people do? I was just used to kind of figuring it all out on my own and keep moving forward and keep having happy customers. But then it was like, I can't continue to do this because I can't work anymore. I'm going to get burned out. And I left my job for more freedom. And I realized that even though I was in my mind, I was in total control. I was doing everything myself. I was really in a position of no control, because if something happened to me, my business would go to zero. My wife would not be happy. My customers would not be happy. And the employees that I did have delivering the service, they definitely would be out of a job as well. So I realized that, I needed to be a little bit more responsible and start taking the time to put those systems in place. And luckily with technology, you can pretty much document almost everything the next time you do it. So you don't have to take a lot of time to start creating these processes. It's like the next time you need to do X, Y, and Z on your WordPress site, just hit record, do it, and then all of a sudden you've created a training video while actually doing that process. So it wasn't like it took that much more time, because then I could send that video off to my team who I built. They were all local, but they're all working from home. So we use technology to communicate. Google Drive, like you mentioned. We use Slack to always stay in communication. And then I used Camtasia. This was back in like 2011, 12, 13-ish. So there wasn't a ton of great free tools like there are now. You could use stuff like Zoom, or, depending if you use a Mac or Windows, there's always free screen recording softwares now on computers as well. So that was probably the biggest hurdle, the biggest issue that I ran into, just because at first I didn't really know what to do. And that's when I started reading books and listening to podcasts, because before that, I didn't really try and learn from anybody else as far as, how to run this business and how to get more efficient and how to build that business so it can survive without me.
And I really like how you listen to podcasts and read books, because like self-education is something that's very important for us to achieve the success we want to achieve. We get to learn from people who have achieved a higher level of success. We get to see where they went wrong. They can share some shortcuts. So that learning element is really important. And that's something like, you should really interesting though. Like, what if you get hit by a bus? I mean, like, does your business continue to survive? So it's something we should think about. Like, maybe not the getting hit by a bus example, because for some people, they may not want to think that way. But like, what if you take like a week off? What's going to happen to your business? You can't pick up the phone. You can't do anything like that for your business at all. What exactly happens to it? That is something that we should be thinking about. That's just something we should continue thinking about. And that's where the delegation is really useful. But you did mention that you are doing a lot of reading. How that helped a lot. And I'm wondering, with that in mind, if you could share with us 3 great books that you believe will have a positive impact on us.
Yeah, Mark, I would say the 3 books that I would recommend. The first one is the first business book I ever read. It was probably around this time when I was kind of freaking out that I was working like a maniac and not really getting anywhere. I was busy, but not really productive. And it was The Go-Giver by Bob Burg and John David Mann. It's a really good book. Especially for any content marketers out there as well. It's just the concept of serving before selling, and really just continuing to provide value with the understanding that eventually it'll all come back to you, probably 10x. So The Go-Givers would be number 1. The second one, it's probably 1A, right behind The Go-Giver. I started reading this. I didn't even want to sell my business, but it's called Built to Sell by John Warlow, and it's really just about building a sellable business. Means you're building a business that can survive without you, even if you don't want to sell it. So creating a business that can run with or without you. So Built to Sell. And then the last one, ironically, I didn't read until after I sold my business. Once I got into podcasting, people started recommending it. It was The E-Myth by Michael Gerber, kind of switching from working in your business to working on your business. So lots of great books out there, but those would be my top 3 recommendations.
Paul, thank you for sharing those great book recommendations. And Bob Burg was actually a guest on the Breakthrough Success podcast, so we will actually link that episode in the show notes and all the book recommendations. The show notes are all over at markroberti.com/E225. And if anyone's interested in a book that can help them generate more revenue from their content brand, you could also get your copy of Content Marketing Secrets over at markroberti.com/book. And before we wrap up this episode, Paul, I've asked you several questions throughout our time together, but what do you believe is one question that we need to be asking ourselves more often?
That is a great question, Mark. I really enjoyed our conversation. I would say the one question that we all should ask ourselves on a daily basis, and this is like one of the first things whenever I'm working with a new client or a new business is whenever something happens in your business that you don't want to happen, ask yourself, what can I do or what can I put in place to make sure this never happens again? And that's how you're going to start building systems and processes. So if you're a content marketer and whatever happened, someone hacked your WordPress site and everything went to crap and you're like, what do I do? How can I make sure this never happens again? Well, you probably should, one, have a better security system, but two, always back up your website on a regular basis. Have something that's always backing it up because it's inevitable. Someone's going to hack your website. So that's a really basic example, but always be asking yourself, what can I do to make sure this never happens again? Because things happen to our business every day that we never want to happen again. But a lot of times as business owners, we just figure it out, solve it for that time, but then it's going to come up again later if we don't put a system in place to make sure it never happens again.
Paul, thank you for sharing with us that question, all of your great insights throughout our time together. If you guys want to learn more about Paul, he actually has a Freedom Mastermind that you can apply to. That is at bizfreedomformula.com. So if you're ready to achieve the freedom and income you've sought ever since you've started your business, definitely apply to join that Freedom Mastermind because Paul has a lot of rockstar business owners who are in that group and they will help you grow, and Paul will help you grow in that mastermind as well. So that link, again, bizfreedomformula.com, will be in the show notes. But Paul, I can't thank you enough for sharing all of your great insights with us today. It was such a pleasure to have you on Breakthrough Success.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mark. Really enjoyed it, and I really appreciate you having me on the show.
How does over 100 retweets per day sound to you? My free ebook, 27 Ways to Get More Retweets on Twitter, has you covered. I use the methods within this ebook to get over 10,000 retweets every single quarter. To learn